Welcome back to the dining room table build. My name's Guy, and as you can see, I have completed the top. Well, almost. At the end of the video, I have a question to ask you guys. It's more of a design thing, and I want your input. But for now, this is the way it sits. I've got the two halves. I've got the leaf in the middle. I've got this real nice solid walnut banding around it. I've also got this maple inlay. Well, it's kind of an inlay going all the way around it in nice mitered corners. So stick around. I'll show you how I got to this point. And again, at the end of the video, I have a question for you. Well, after I've got the three pieces that comprise the top out of the clamps and all nice and flush on the top, I need to start with one reference edge. Now, it's very important that when I cut these three pieces that they're all equal width and the length is correct. So I'm actually going to start from the middle and work my way out. Now, I know this edge right here, not the walnut strip, but the walnut veneer, has a straight edge and the grain is the way it should be. So I know I need to cut off about ½ an inch on each side. I know this is about ¼ of an inch overhang here. So what I'm going to do is just going to take my pencil and I'm going to mark ¼ inch into the field of this panel. Then I need to cut to that line, and what I'm going to use is I'm going to use my track saw. And if you don't have a track saw, you can just use the guide on your regular circular saw and you get the same results. So I'm just going to line that up to that mark and clamp it in place. Well, I've got the two halves clamped down on my table again, and I want to make sure that they're perfectly flush on either side. They can be a little bit off, but I really don't want them to be that much off. I can always trim it down a little bit later with the hand plane. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come in from 2 inches and then 6½ inches. I'm going to do that from both edges. And what those are is the marks where I'm going to put 4 barrel hinges that go in this piece. I have half the leaf clamped to my table here, and if you're not familiar with a barrel hinge, this is it right here, and which way it opens up, there it goes. And that's it right there, and basically what it's going to do is it's going to go in here, and it's going to enable me to put these together and then fold them up in half when they're there. So I've got one of the larger panels clamped up in my bench here, and a lot like the center panel, I need to get one clean edge. And again, I'm going to use my track saw for this. Well, now that I've got that edge nice and square, or I should say straight, what I need to do is flip this around. Now, I do not have a fence on my table saw that goes above 32 inches. This needs to be 36 inches long, so I need to rip a piece off of here that's parallel to this one back here. So I've got this little contraption here which is a parallel guide that works in conjunction with my track. I just butt that up against there. Now I know that when I cut this edge is going to be parallel to this one back here. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take some blue tape and I'm going to temporarily tape all these pieces together nice and tight. Well, this is what I was talking about before. I put some tape up here to hold all these pieces together for the most part. They shouldn't shift around. Hopefully they won't shift around at all. And I've got a very long track to cut the one edge over there. Now this rail is perpendicular to this, and I've checked out with the long square on both ends, and I'm just pretty much ready to make the cut at this point. Well, I've got the parallel guides back in place on this rail. I left them at the same spot, which I know is exactly at 36 inches before, so I just need to make this one last long cut along this edge. Well, here's the top all cut, and it came out absolutely perfectly square. I'm actually shocked it did. So anyways, the next step in this is I need to put a border that's going to go all the way around this, and it's going to be about, well, altogether it's going to be about 3 inches. Well, here's 2 pieces of 8/4 walnut. They're about 8.5 feet long maybe. There are some checks on the end. I need to pay pretty close attention to the grain pattern on these. Now I need to get about maybe 3 1/4, 3.5 inches off of each side of this. This all the way along its length is really nice and straight over here, and this is really nice and straight over here. Now on these sides of the boards, not so much. I have a piece here about 52 and a piece there about 52. These actually came from the same tree, so I'm pretty lucky there. So these are going to be way too big to try to cut on my table saw, and for a lot of other safety reasons I just didn't want to try to attempt it. So I'm going to do it on my bandsaw, and again I'm going to rip about 3 1/4, 3.5 inches off of each side of these boards. I've got the milling, well, almost complete for these. Basically what I did was I got these down to 1/4 inch of their final dimensions. They're 3 inches by 1.5 inches. These are eventually going to be 2 3/4 by 1 1/4 inches. But I want them to sit for a week to see how they react. I've milled these pieces down to almost their final dimension. This is 1 1/4 inches thick by 2 3/4 inches wide. What these pieces are, this is hard maple that's 1/4 inch thick and 1 1/4 inches wide, the same thickness almost as these walnut 2x4s, if that's what you want to call them. I'm going to glue these and laminate them to these pieces, and it's going to look like an inlay from the top. But it's much easier because when I cut those corners, I don't have to fiddle with it twice. I can just do it once. After I've got the floating tenons put in my tabletop, these are the 2 long rails with the tops facing up, and I want to make sure that they're sequential going all the way down between the left, the right wing, and the middle leaf. So I'm going to call this left 1, left 2, left 3. And I'll mark the other one. Now when I cut these, I'm going to cut this first one at a 45-degree angle, put it in there, and then cut it right where it needs to go, and then I'll set this piece aside so I can put that on the leaf on the left-hand side where it's going to go. So I just want to make a mark right here. That's where that corner is going to be. Actually, this is going to be cut at a 22.5 degrees. I cut the other end of this and I left it just maybe a 1/16 of an inch long. I don't want to have too much interruption in the grain down there. So the next thing I need to do is cut this one, and I'm just going to put it on there like that, kind of eyeball it, and then I know my cut's got to go this way. So I'm going to start with the 22.5 angle on this end. So it took 2 or 3 tries, actually it's about 3 tries, before I got it perfect. I'm just going to take the other piece of this, put up against there, and I've got a nice smooth edge going all the way around. I've got no visible gaps on the inside, and all these joints here are closing up real nice and tight. Well, here's the first tabletop half that's got the frame around it. Everything came together real nice. It's real nice and flat. All the joints are really super nice and tight. There's one over in that corner over there that's just a tiny bit off, but I'm not going to worry about that. I've still got the other half to do and the leaf, and the framing part of this will be done, but I still have to reinforce this. I have to glue it all up, and it's going to take a little bit of time. Well, here's the first glue up done, and came together very nice. It was actually pretty easy. I probably shouldn't have said that since I have another one to do and a leaf, but this one came together easy. Nice and flush at all the edges, and all the miters are nice and tight. So I'm going to let this sit for a couple hours and take it out of the clamps, and then I'll work on reinforcing the miter joints. So I took the tabletops out of the clamps and I sanded them nice and smooth. They're nice and flat. The next thing I want to do, as I talked about this before, I want to reinforce these miter joints. I could have used biscuits or dominoes when I put this together, but it would have been way too difficult to glue up with those extra pieces in there and these angles. So I decided to do it afterwards. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a groove all the way across here that's going to be a 1/4 inch wide and a 1/2 inch deep. And I've got a 1/4 inch slot cutting bit set up in my router, and I've got a straight edge here. So I just need to rip that out and fill it in later with a piece of walnut. It should look nice. Here's the grooves for the splines that I cut, and I guess my question is my original thought was to fill these in with walnut, flush them all the way around, give it a nice appearance and some strength. I guess my question is, should I put a contrasting wood in here? You think maybe cherry or the maple or maybe even ebony? Should I pillow it out a little bit, almost like a green and green piece? I don't know. It's an interesting question. So I haven't decided yet, and I'd really like to hear what you guys have to say. So please make sure and leave a comment below. Well, that's it for now, and I hope you enjoyed watching me put this together. And again, please leave a comment about the splines. I really want to hear what you guys think. As always, thank you very much for watching. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. Next time I'm going to be working on the butterfly leaf mechanism that goes in the center, and some other things I need to tidy up on the top before this piece is pretty much complete before the finishing. We'll see you later.